another crash and burn. First time, huh, rookie? Hey, listen, I hear they're putting you in with Ghost today. Now that's my main man. Greatest co-pilot to ever shoot the tubes. Give him your best stuff, and he'll keep you flying. Maybe all the way to Solar City, huh?
Pilot Valgo to launch Tray 7. Valgo to launch Tray 7.
Showtime. I'm Falco. You'll be hearing from me.
Welcome to the sewers, punk. The guy you're replacing, he had that same tough guy smirk on his face that you do, till he hit the wall. They're out there now blotting him up with handy wipes. But the ghost here, I always come back for more. Let's go, rookie! Take a deep breath, rookie. Don't you love the smell of the sewers in the morning? They smell like victory. This here's the whole hog. I took her apart and I put her back together again. No matter what they taught you up at Tot Rat, factory jobs ain't worth scrap. I got some stuff in her. It's not all strictly legal, but it just might keep you off the wall. Now until you earn a better one, your call sign, Dog Meat. All right, climb aboard, Dog Meat.
Alpha ship departures from launch trays 5, 37, and 22.
I'm normally a fan of James Rolfe's angry video game nerd character. He's fun to watch and, being from my generation, has a perspective on those old games I can really relate to. That said, in his review of the Sega CD console, I really felt like he threw Sewer Shark under the bus, and also he could do a Spinal Tap reference.
Someday I'll review some of these games in greater detail, but for most of them, there's really not much to say. Like this one, for example, Sewer Shark. For this game, all I have is a 2-word review. Shit Shark.
It's easy to castigate the Sega CD from the vantage of modern times, but as I pointed out in my Dune video, CD-ROM technology represented tantalizing new ground for developers and tech enthusiasts alike back in the early 90s, and as such there was a push to make new and innovative use of the technology. Full-motion video was among the most exciting innovations of the time, and game developers were scrambling to take advantage of the new medium. I know that it probably seems like an afterthought to younger gamers, but the idea that you could have live actors and theatrical cinematography in a game was revolutionary. It was akin to growing up in the silent era of movies and suddenly getting to see the early talkies. In fact, that's exactly what it was. Video games were at a crucial point where they were transitioning out of being mere toys and into a world of genuine artistic expression. Unfortunately, the so-called full-motion video still left a lot to be desired. The earliest exploration of the idea came over a decade prior with the now cult classic arcade machine Dragon Slayer, which featured the stunning animation of Don Bluth. On a personal note, Don Bluth is my favorite animator of all time. He worked on the Disney adaptation of Robin Hood before setting out on his own to create The Secret of Nim, An American Tale, The Land Before Time, Anastasia, and Titan AE. All of which I count among my favorite animated films, and you should too. And for the record, he had nothing to do with the deluge of shitty sequels and spin-offs from those franchises, but I digress. Anyway, the problem with Dragon Slayer was that despite its gorgeous cinema-quality animation, there just wasn't much to it gameplay-wise. You don't control Dirk the Daring, rather you control the procession of events in the game. At certain points, you are prompted to move the joystick in a direction or push the sword button, and if you time it right, the video will continue playing. It's about as interactive as flipping through a DVD menu, and if you think I'm exaggerating, the game has been released on DVD. The problem with the ability to use CD-ROM for video, although Dragon's Lair originally ran on a Laserdisc, was that the processing power of computers at the time was enough to play video, but not enough to actually use it to create an interactive experience. Thus, most games were relegated to using video for cutscenes and otherwise standard gameplay. For adventure games, which tend to be slower paced and more contemplative, this wasn't a problem, and titles like Myst, The Seventh Guest, and Sherlock Holmes, The Consulting Detective integrated video beautifully. Action games, on the other hand, were a mixed bag. Mad Dog McCree was a shooting gallery spaghetti western, and the premise, to outdraw a series of Old West bandits, is fairly smoothly integrated, although it can be obvious when the screen freezes that an enemy is about to emerge. But then there's Prize Fighter on the Sega CD. The attempt is at a first-person boxing experience. A nice idea, but in the end, the result is that a set of computerized boxing gloves hover over the screen and throw only the missing punches. If you connect with a hit, the screen cuts to a separate shot of your opponent being hit with the appropriate punch. Because there's no smooth integration between these obviously disparate shots, there's no sense of immersion or interactivity. At the end of the day, FMV action games generally relied on one or two simple gameplay mechanics that were more oriented around timing than anything else. The result was games that were beautiful to look at, but less playable than most Atari 2600 titles. Many gaming journalists of the era lamented how this seemed like the ultimate triumph of style over substance, and it seemed like there would never be an action game that smoothly integrated video and was still, above all, a fun game to play. Enter Sewer Shark. The premise is simple. Sometime in a gritty dystopian future, mutant vermin have taken over the sewer system, and it's the job of the so-called sewer jockeys to fly through the tunnels on high-speed hovercrafts, blasting the little critters to kingdom come. The player takes on the role of a new recruit to the sewer jockey business who is partnered with Ghost, a veteran pilot. Over the course of your first day on the job, you learn that pilots have been going missing and ultimately turn up dead in a Bermuda Triangle part of the sewers known as Sector 19. Eventually, we learn that your boss, Commissioner Stenchler, has been intentionally breeding vermin to flood the sewers so as to keep the populace of the underground dystopia from ever reaching Solar City, an above-world paradise of the bourgeoisie. So why does Sewer Shark work so well when other FMV action titles crash and burn? Well, first and foremost, there's two gameplay elements that the player must balance simultaneously. While flying down a tunnel, video of the environment shoots by at breakneck speed while the player works on shooting down as many mutant creatures as possible. During this time, the video simply plays passively while the player interacts with enemies that are superimposed on top of it. Because this part of the interactive experience happens without interrupting the video, we, the players, are better able to become immersed in the game's world rather than being constantly reminded that we're only the occasional button press away from simply watching a movie. The game has a second element, however. The player is also expected to navigate a path through the sewer system that the game randomly generates. You have a scouting droid that flies out in front of your ship to open the various floodgates, and if you don't follow his coordinates, you splatter all over the gates that failed to open. So the player will be periodically prompted to change to a new tube. The video of the new tube transfers seamlessly and with no load time, adding to the wonderfully immersive effect. You will truly feel like you're flying down these sewer tunnels, and the camera banks around with a loose, motion sickness-inducing pivot that adds to the effect. These two elements combine to create one of the few FMV action games that works. It's the perfect integration of premise and medium. If this game had been at the forefront of the FMV action experience, the medium might have actually taken off rather than being regarded as a rather embarrassing wrong turn. Not only do the gaming elements work, the filmmaking is top-notch as well. From the very beginning, we're dropped into a world of dark, dank, grease-stained science fiction hell that conjures up the Blade Runner abyss alien worlds of Ridley Scott, and there's a remarkable amount of detail that went into the hovercrafts, the robots, and the mutant creatures. If the video were rendered in a higher quality, it would be indistinguishable from a standard Hollywood movie. Another great element is the way in which the designers compensated for the fact that the video doesn't cover the whole screen. Except for the beginning and ending sequences and one short sequence in the middle, all of the video is either seen through the cockpit window or the pilot's onboard navigation screen, so it makes sense why it's windowed. Perhaps most remarkable is the quality acting in some of the performances. Ghost and Catfish are great sidekicks.
Maybe you're good enough, dog meat. Let's find out. I'm your backseat this trip, so don't screw up, huh? Hey, Captain! Transmit, you dirty little...
Whoa, I'm working real good now, Mr. Ghost. Oh my gosh, what is that ugly thing sitting in the pilot's seat?
Catfish is the eccentric, addle-brained AI that flies ahead of you and broadcasts your directions. His amusing quips and hayseed accent are instantly lovable, and his dialogue is perfectly scripted, so much so that 20 years later I still chuckle when I hear lines like, "Attention, Sewer Mart shoppers, we have a lovely assortment of bogeys bearing 12, 9, or 12. Similarly, David Underwood's performance of Ghost is spot on. It feels strange to applaud the acting in an early FMV video game, but he really plays the character extremely well. I never felt like I was just watching an actor recite lines as I did with every character except The Undertaker and Mad Dog McCree. Underwood breathes life into the character with the precision and fluidity of a truly skilled actor. We truly get the feeling that this character is a lifelong adrenaline junkie that's a practiced veteran at the craft of sewer sharking. His sneering, devil-may-care attitude sits perfectly on top of his jaded, cynical interior self. Hovering in the middle is his clear love and dedication to his work as a sewer jockey. It's a wonderfully compelling and enjoyable character to watch. Nobody seems to know what happened to David Underwood after Sewer Shark. IMDb lists him as having a few more minor roles, but he seems to have stopped acting in the late 90s. There's a rumor that he was a politician in Australia, and while there is a David Underwood who represented the Labour Party for Ipswich West, I can't find anything linking the two. Sewer Shark was actually very well received, again an unusual development for FMV titles. The Associated Press called it one of the top 10 games of 1993 and wrote, "Although the quality of games for this evolving format has been mixed, Sewer Shark is a real jewel. From some programmers' twisted imagination comes a peek into the future when men and women dive into the sewers in high-powered cruisers to destroy the vermin that live in the dank, dark tunnels. It's bizarre and wildly entertaining. If you have a Sega CD, you need Sewer Shark." Sewer Shark wasn't perfect, however. Firstly, Kari Payton's performance as Falco comes off as forced and over the top. She has neither the grace nor control of David Underwood, and the difference is striking. It becomes clear rather quickly that she's just there to be eye candy, but she's still great eye candy. The other problem is Commissioner Stenchler. Robert Costanzo is believable as the character, and he works fine for the first part of the game where he's just played for laughs, but when it's revealed that he's actually the villain, the story suffers as a result. As a bad guy, Stenchler is completely devoid of menace and doesn't seem like much of a threat at all. This is further driven home when his death scene at the end is him being rolled out to sea in an inner tube. It's only when Stenchler is on the screen as the bad guy that the game loses its edge and the atmosphere is reduced to the level of a Saturday morning cartoon. But these are very minor shortcomings that pale in comparison to the game's strengths. There is something marvelously hypnotic about shooting the tubes, an effect that was echoed in the modern classic Smash Hit, which uses a similar first-person rail shooter mechanic. Sewer Shark is not only a rare achievement for the FMV format, but one of the great unsung milestones in video games. How many games draw the player into the experience to the point that one truly feels as if they are becoming the character they play? You'll find yourself nodding along to the beat as the ship flies in perfect time with the Spitfire soundtrack and secretly wishing Sewer Jockey was an actual job title. Turn and burn, dog meat. turn and burn.